Do you think that Russia did meddle in any way in the 2016 election? And do you think that they colluded with the Donald Trump campaign?
RussiaGate is a hoax. Let me be 100% clear about that. It is a hoax. It is a diversion. It is a DNC talking point. Don't look behind the curtain, because behind the curtain is all of the other abuses, the corporate money being pumped into politics, the electronic voting machines that are flipping elections, all of these other ugly things that are happening. Don't look behind that curtain. Here, look at the RussiaGate circus. And it's really unfortunate that there would be any candidates in a green race that would buy into that. There has been some, what people have described as dialing back on that since the interview. Really, in order to dial back on something, you really have to acknowledge that there was fault originally and then move in a different direction. Mostly there's just been deflection. On a recent interview with Ron Placone, my colleague Hawkins said he was up late, he was hungry. That's why he said what he said on your show.
You know, there were some statements you made on the show PRIMO NUTMEG that were, you know, pretty disappointing to hear, especially from someone in your position. Again, I mean, the Russia hysteria, you know, they basically had a 3-year distractathon over a couple memes that were intended to spam people, some of which came out even after the election. And, you know, you see the way this has been weaponized against Black Lives Matter, how it has been weaponized against DAPL, how it has been weaponized against activists, how it has been weaponized brutally against your colleague Jill Stein. And, you know, when you kind of genuflect at that altar, it's very concerning to hear. So I guess in particular, do you retract some of those statements you made on PRIMO NUTMEG?
I was kind of disjointed on PRIMO NUTMEG. It was like 70 minutes into an interview and I was hungry. I got up at 3 a.m. So like I remember one point I was asked about the Mueller report and I said, you know, it was full of, you know, references to collusion. In other words, contacts between Russians and Trump people. It's over 100 of them. And then I blurted out, I think Trump should be impeached. Now, what I had in mind was the obstruction of justice and other things, the emoluments, the self-enrichment, the nepotism, that blatant racism. I mean, I think by that point, Al Green had already put his article of impeachment on for Trump's racism. I mean, the guy has a rap sheet a mile long. So, you know, in the context, some of the stuff I said may have not come across the way I intended to.
They're doing it for Russian propaganda. That was what the Russians wanted. I mean, it's so ironic. So, you know, the media is, you know, they're following this RussiaGate thing, which I think is serious. I think Trump ought to be impeached. I think it's obvious he sought collusion. He did collude, him and his son and his, you know, his son-in-law. And, you know, it's all over that first volume of the Mueller report. It's all over there. I mean, you know, when people say, oh, it showed no collusion. No, it didn't. It says, you know, Mueller says right away, I didn't talk about collusion. I talked about narrow legal definition of conspiracy. Plus, I can't indict a president, according to this OLC letter in the Justice Department. He just laid out the evidence for prosecutors, which has to be Congress.
What can I say about that? All I know is that when I get a little peckish, I don't just start parroting CIA talking points. That's never going to happen. I'm very clear on the garbage coming out in regards to RussiaGate, in regards to Syria. Our campaign has been clear on that from the beginning. People need to know that they can trust your positions on foreign policy, at the very least, for the duration of the race, that they aren't going to flip one way or the other or back and forth in the context of a race. And considering how RussiaGate has affected us as Greens, you know, how it has affected Jill Stein. It's been used as a bludgeon against the left. It's been used against Jill Stein. It's been used against Tulsi Gabbard. And there really shouldn't be any home for that, for buying into that amongst leaders in the Green Party. And it's just really appalling to me that for some there shouldn't be. You know, our campaign has absolutely no agreement whatsoever with those garbage CIA, DNC talking points.
Do you think it was a mistake for Jill Stein to attend the RT dinner where Vladimir Putin ended up sitting at her table?
No, we talk about as a party having more influence, more of a connection on a national and international stage. This is what we talk about as a party. And the idea that someone who is a green leader would then say, no, no, you shouldn't do that. No, you shouldn't make that connection. No, you shouldn't be present at this event. You know, there were similar criticisms lobbed at Tulsi Gabbard in regards to Assad, for instance. How do you talk about peace, but then say you won't be connected with, won't meet with, won't even appear in a picture with other world leaders? You don't have to agree with those world leaders. You don't have to agree with everything they do. In fact, the fact that you don't is more of a reason why you should actually meet and talk things out. You know, our campaign is the only campaign talking about building a Department of Peace and ending the military-industrial complex. And how you do that is having those fruitful diplomatic relationships with countries. All of those talking points, RussiaGate, all that nonsense, all it does is facilitate the saber rattling and the drum beats of war. And all that does is make profit for the oligarchy. And that's not what we should be about as a party. It's certainly not what I'm about as a candidate.